firm that runs the Ricoh Arena is asking the courts to put the club, the Sky Blues, into administration in a row over £1.3 million of unpaid rent. ACL has said that it's taken the action to stop Sky Blues owner Sisu from winding up the club completely, and it says that if administrators were appointed, they'd look to sell the club to a new buyer. And if the action is successful, it would mean a 10-point deduction for the Sky Blues as well. We're going to speak to an ACL representative after 8 on the show this morning, so hopefully you can stay with us for that. At the moment, no one from the club is available to talk to us, and the club have yet to issue a statement. But as I say, we are working feverishly behind the scenes to bring you somebody from the club on the show this morning. But in the meantime, let's get the views of a football finance expert, Professor Chris Brady. He's from the Centre of Sports Business at University of Salford and joins us on the show. Chris, thanks for being with us this morning. I know you've been following these events closely. Firstly, it's painted as a very simple process, you know, that you have this winding up order and then we find another buyer. These things are rarely that simple, are they?
Well, I'm sure Sisu would have been trying to get out for the last couple of years and recoup some of the 40 million they've put into it, and they haven't been able to find a buyer. So the idea that an administrator is going to come in and be able to find a buyer is, as you say, much more complicated than it would appear, not least because of the problem with the club of the disconnect between the stadium, the ownership of the stadium and the ownership of the club. So
that is the thing that's done. Fans have said this to me on Twitter and on text this morning. That's not going to go away, is it?
No, exactly. The fans are right. What an administrator is required to do by law is to come in and ensure that the creditors are paid. Not that the club is sold, not that anything else, but the creditors are paid. So, for example, normally they would start to divest themselves of particular assets. So, for example, if you look at the Republic thing, that the retail shops that were closed recently, went through administration recently, they're selling off all the shops. Now, the club's only asset, because it doesn't own the ground, the club's only assets are the players. Now, they can't sell off the players because they couldn't then fulfil their fixtures. So they're in a sort of a catch-22 situation there.
Could they be forced to sell the players?
Well, technically they could be, but which would force the club to renege on its fixtures, and then it would go out of business anyway. So you might as well go insolvent in the first place. In
these kind of situations, Chris, I mean, if you owe money to the HMRC, that is a very different ball game, isn't it? Then it's a very different one to if you owe ordinary creditors, if you know what I mean. Like, but by that, do you know? Do they owe any money in taxes or not?
I'd be amazed if they didn't, given the situation. In the situation they're in, but the other thing that's important to understand here is that the first creditors that get paid in the football club are the football-related creditors. So that the players and the manager and everybody else involved in the club. There's a football creditors rule, which is unusual in administration. Normally the creditors get paid out equally or in proportion. That's not the case with football clubs. Football-related creditors are paid in full first, and then everybody else collects what's left.
Is ACL a football-related creditor then? I suppose are they? It's difficult to tell, isn't it?
It's difficult to work out, but it's unlikely that they would be seen as a football-related creditor. But that's up to the courts to decide, because it's very complicated in football because of this particular rule. So, I mean, tax will come first, won't they? So if they owe any money to HMRC, they will be No, still not in this case. They will come after football-related. First.
Okay.
Then everybody else, and that includes tax.
Wow, OK, that is a different ball game, isn't it, then, entirely? All right, then, somebody else has suggested, is there a possibility, the way that the businesses are set up for Sisu, that Sisu could actually be a creditor of the football club?
No, it's unlikely because they're a wholly owned subsidiary, so that's unlikely. I mean, they could claim that presumably, but again, that would be a decision to be made by the courts. And the interesting thing, I was just going back over my records of Coventry, and the interesting thing, if you look at seasons 2007 through to 2010, Coventry were paying out, well, in one season, 120% of its revenue on wages. Next season 71%, next season 103%, and so when people ask how they get into these situations, how football clubs get into these situations, look back in the records, and it's pretty straightforward.
It's not rocket science, is it? They're actually spending more than they're getting in.
Exactly.
End of story. The other situation as well that we just want to clarify: this move, will it get ACL the £1.3 million that they're owed, or is
got it? No, that's the point. When it goes into administration, the job of the administrator is, as I've said, is to pay off all the creditors in some sort of proportion with any money it can raise. Now the problem is how are they going to raise any money? Who's going to pay anything for it? This is the sort of thing that normally somebody will buy for £1 and take over all the debt.
Yeah.
In which case, then everybody will get their money.
Do you think, as a result of this, ACL are going to have to come to the conclusion that whoever takes over the club will have to get the stadium?
Well, they'll have to. I know that ACL have offered to reduce the rent from, I think it's from 1.3 to about 400,000.
That's right.
And that may tempt in a buyer. A buyer may say, but I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole, because you can't generate all the revenue that ACL generate from the Ricoh Stadium, and they're quite happy to brag about that. They make a profit and they do really well. That normally would be going into the football club.
Right. Fascinating to talk to you. You've covered a lot of ground there. As a final point, though, what timescale can fans expect now? How quickly will this move?
2-3 weeks, something like that. It all depends what the High Court's calendar looks like, but 2 or 3 weeks, I should think. They'll get a decision on whether it should go into administration. Effectively, what the court will do is decide whether this company is technically trading insolvent. If it is, then they'll go into administration.